Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into some fascinating stuff.
Always.
Today we're tackling a pretty heavy topic, but a crucial one. The link between personality behavior and gender-based violence.
Definitely an important one.
Yeah, you guys sent in some thought-provoking stuff. Exploring how where we are can actually change how we act.
Right.
And also what role our personality traits might play in GBV. And some questions about dissociative identity disorder, too, which, spoiler alert, is often way different in real life than in movies.
Definitely not what the movies make it out to be. What's really interesting is all this stuff connects to something we do every single day. Adapting our behavior depending on the situation.
So, like, how I act at a family dinner is different from how I act at a concert.
Exactly. That's what we call context-dependent behavior. Basically, it's just part of being human, how we respond to those social cues, expectations, all those different scenarios we find ourselves in. Like, think about it. You wouldn't act the same at a job interview as you would at a party, right?
True. Totally different vibes. So, different situations, different approaches. Makes sense. But how does this seemingly normal behavior relate to something as serious as GBV? It seems like a bit of a jump.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Usually adjusting our behavior is harmless. But it can become a problem when certain actions, even harmful ones, are kind of normalized or encouraged in specific settings.
Okay, I see what you mean. So, like, I don't know if there's a workplace where sexist jokes are just brushed off as harmless fun.
Exactly. That kind of context, unfortunately, can create a space where someone might feel emboldened to cross the line.
From a joke to, like, actual harassment or even violence.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a lot. But how much does this really factor into GBV? I mean, wouldn't someone with strong moral values resist that kind of influence?
It's complicated, for sure, lots of layers to it.
Yeah.
But think about how power dynamics can shift based on where you are, the context. Someone who might never even think about being violent on their own could potentially act differently within a group.
Like if they feel like they have more power.
Yeah, or if certain behaviors are kind of implicitly condoned in that group.
That's that's a pretty unsettling thought. But it makes sense, right? The environment can really change how people act. We also had some questions about specific personality traits and how they might be connected to GBV.
Right. So research has shown that some personality traits are statistically associated with a higher risk of perpetrating GBV.
Okay, so like what? What kind of traits?
Things like aggression, a strong need for control, lack of empathy, even manipulative tendencies. But, and this is important, these are just statistical associations, not guarantees.
I remember seeing something in the material about Machiavellianism. What is that exactly?
Oh, it sounds intimidating, but it's basically a personality type that's, well, very manipulative, cunning, focused on their own goals, even if it means stepping on others. They often lack empathy, and they'll use, like, deceit or even exploitation to get what they want.
So not someone you want to negotiate with.
Probably not, no.
Is this something that's like easily identifiable or is it more subtle?
Yeah, it can be subtle, definitely. And it's a spectrum, right? Not everyone who shows some of these traits is going to be harmful. But when you see a consistent pattern,
Someone always putting their own gain first, not caring about others' feelings, using manipulation.
exactly, that can be a big red flag.
Okay, good to know. Patterns, context, it all matters.
This makes me think about all those different personality types we hear about, like Myers-Briggs and all that. Is there any connection between those personality types and GBV?
It's something researchers are still looking into, and we need to be really careful about jumping to conclusions here. Some studies have suggested that certain personality types, particularly the ones with a strong need for control or a lack of empathy, might be statistically more likely to be associated with GBV.
But having that type doesn't automatically mean someone will be violent.
Exactly. It's crucial to understand that. Personality type does not determine whether someone will be violent.
So it's more about potential risk factors, not like a prediction of what someone will do. Exactly. Personality is just one piece of the puzzle, a very complex puzzle. And having a certain personality type is never, ever an excuse for violence.
How we clarified that. Now, there's another topic that came up that often gets, well, kind of misrepresented in media. Dissociative identity disorder. DID.
Yeah.
We had some questions about how it relates to GBV.
This is definitely a topic that needs a lot of sensitivity and accurate information. First of all, it's important to know that DID is not just having a split personality like you see in the movies.
Right.
It's much more complex than that.
Yeah.
It's actually a condition often rooted in trauma where someone develops distinct, alternate identities. We call them alters.
How else right
And
now?
these alters, they're not separate people, but rather different ways of thinking, feeling, experiencing the world.
And these develop as a way of coping with trauma.
Exactly. Overwhelming trauma.
Yeah, that's a lot to process.
Hmm.
So much nuance that gets lost in those popular portrayals.
Mhm.
Is it easy to diagnose, or is it more complicated?
It can be tough to diagnose, definitely. It takes a skilled mental health professional, someone with special training in trauma and dissociation.
I see.
Did symptoms vary a lot from person to person? There's no one-size-fits-all approach to diagnosis or treatment.
So you can't just, like, see someone switch between personalities and be like, oh, that's DD.
Definitely not. It's much more intricate. You have to do a thorough assessment of their history, their symptoms, how these alters function in their life. But the main point is DD is a legitimate and serious condition. People with DD deserve understanding and care, not judgment or stigma.
Right, absolutely. Sounds like there's a lot more to learn about DDD than what we see on TV.
Yeah.
But how does this complex condition relate to GBV? Is there a direct link?
That's a common question. And we have to be really clear about the answer. While trauma is a big factor in DD, it's crucial to understand that DID itself does not cause or excuse GBV.
Okay.
People who commit violence are responsible for their own actions, regardless of any mental health conditions they may have.
Right, holding individuals accountable, but also acknowledging that DID is a complex condition,
Yeah.
often misunderstood.
Exactly. We can't stigmatize people with DID.
Right, absolutely. I'm glad we brought that up. We need to approach these conversations with sensitivity and accuracy. And this whole discussion about DID trauma, it's making me think. Trauma seems like such a big part of all this stuff we're talking about. It makes me wonder, like, could recognizing and addressing trauma help prevent GBV?
That's a really important point. We tend to focus on the immediate stuff around GBV, but yeah, understanding the trauma that both survivors and perpetrators might have gone through, that's essential for real prevention, for intervention. It's crucial.
So, like, looking deeper, not just the surface. But how do we even address trauma on a big scale? That
Yeah.
seems huge.
It's a big challenge, no doubt. But I think we need to start by changing how we think about it. Seeking help for trauma, that should be seen as strong, not weak.
Right, removing that stigma around mental health.
Exactly. And we need resources, support systems that are available to everybody. Doesn't matter what your background is or your income.
That makes sense. But what about those who might not even know they're carrying trauma?
That's where education comes in. We need to learn about trauma, the signs, the symptoms, so we can see it in ourselves, in others.
And not just individuals, right? Like, shouldn't systems and institutions be involved too?
Definitely. We need trauma-informed approaches in our schools, workplaces, healthcare, even the legal system.
So it's not just about punishing bad behavior, but addressing the root causes, helping people heal and grow.
Exactly.
Okay, this is a lot. We've covered so much today. Context, personality, DID, trauma. It's a lot to process.
It is. It's heavy stuff. We need to take care of ourselves, ask for support when we need it.
I hear that. Self-care is essential, for sure. This deep dive has really opened my eyes to how complicated this issue really is. It's not just good guys versus bad guys. It's way more nuanced than that.
It is. It's individuals, social stuff, systems, all tangled up together. Which leads to a big question. How do we break the cycle of GBV? If it's so deeply rooted, so influenced by all these factors, where do we even start?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know if there's a simple answer, but maybe a good place to start is education. Learning about the roots of GBV.
Absolutely, I agree. The more we understand, the better we can challenge those harmful norms, those behaviors.
Or changing the whole culture around these issues so we can actually talk about these things safely. Challenge sexism and misogyny wherever we see it.
Exactly. We need to foster empathy, compassion, teach people to recognize and respect other people's experiences, even if they're different from their own. And of course, holding perpetrators accountable, but also offering support and resources to survivors.
So creating a system where people feel safe speaking out, knowing they'll be believed and supported, all this sounds really important, but also, like, really overwhelming. Where do we start?
Yeah, it can feel daunting, for sure. But I really believe change is possible. One conversation, one action, one intervention at a time.
So focus on what we can control, even if it seems small.
Yes. Every effort matters. Every single one. Even what seems like a small action can ripple outward.
Okay, that's hopeful. Yeah. What can we do, like, in our everyday lives, besides the education, the awareness?
So much. For one, challenge those sexist jokes and comments, even if it feels awkward. Support organizations fighting GBV, volunteer, donate, keep learning about the issue, share what we learn.
Right, right. And maybe be more mindful of our own behavior, too.
Absolutely. How our words and actions affect others, even unintentionally, and being allies to survivors, listening without judgment, offering support, sometimes just being there for someone, letting them know they're not alone, that can make a world of difference.
I think this deep dive has shown me that we all play a part in either perpetuating or challenging GBV. It's not just something that happens out there. It's something we're all responsible for.
That's a powerful realization and a reminder that small actions have a big
I
impact.
feel like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world, right?
Exactly.
We might not solve everything overnight, but we can all help create a better future.
100%. And that's a message we all need to hear. We can all be part of the solution.
As we're talking about all these actions we can take, these cultural norms,
Yeah.
it's important to remember there's this bigger picture too, right? These like systemic factors.
Oh, absolutely. We've been really focused on what individuals do, their choices, but we can't forget about the structures in society, the ones that contribute to gender inequality.
And that inequality creates an environment where GBV can flourish.
Exactly.
So things like economic disparities, laws that discriminate based on gender, even how the media portrays, like harmful stereotypes.
All of that, yep. Those issues create these power imbalances, and they make these harmful attitudes, behaviors seem normal, which makes tackling GBV even harder.
It's a lot, honestly. It feels kind of overwhelming. Where do we even begin to, tackle these huge, deeply rooted problems?
It's a massive challenge, no question, but I think it helps to remember progress happens in stages. Small steps moving in the right direction, those make a difference. And over time, they lead to real, lasting change.
I like that. It reminds me of that Margaret Mead quote, something like, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world.
Perfect quote, yeah. Each
Yeah.
of us has that power to make a difference, even if it seems small at the time.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, it's been heavy, but so important. What's the one thing you want our listener to really take away? That question, that idea that maybe they keep thinking about.
Hmm. It's really fascinating to me how context shapes things. Not just our own behavior, but how we understand other people's actions, how we react. We talked about how certain situations can lead someone to violence, but what about the other side? How does the context affect whether we step in, say something when we see something wrong, support survivors? That's something I hope our listeners will keep thinking about.
That's such a good point. It makes you think about all those times maybe we saw something and it felt off, but we didn't say anything because of where we were, who was around. Maybe we even made excuses for it based on the situation. That's something to really consider.
It is. And it highlights the power we all have to create a culture where people are held accountable, where we support each other, even in small moments.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly informative, thought-provoking. Thanks so much for being here and sharing your expertise.
It's been my pleasure, really. I always enjoy these conversations.
And to our listener, we hope this has given you a deeper understanding of these really complex links between personality, behavior, and gender-based violence. Remember, change starts with awareness, empathy, and that commitment to create a world where everyone feels safe, respected. We all have a role to play in making that happen.